Hey guys, welcome to lecture 24. This is going to be on index hierarchy. So in this lecture we're going to learn about hierarchies and index formation. So you're going to be able to have almost like an index of an index. And I'll show you what I mean about that later in this lecture. So let's go ahead and start off by just importing the usual. Import numpys np from pandas, import series, data frame, import pandas as PD, and then since we're going to be using random numbers later, as we've done in the past, we're going to import from numpy.random, going to import rand n. Okay, cool. So pandas allows you to have multiple index levels, and I'm going to show you with a quick example on a series. So let's go ahead and make a series called SER. We'll call the series. Let's construct it using np. Well, we can construct it using random 6. Just make 6 random numbers. We'll create an index. And you'll notice that my index is going to be 2 lists. So I'm going to pass 2 lists in my index. First list, I'm just going to say 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2. And then my second list, I'll have it be letters. So we'll say A, B, C, whoops. And then we'll repeat it again. A, B, C. So usually we're only passing one index, but now since we're going to learn about index hierarchy, we'll be doing multiple indexes. Let's go ahead and see what that looked like. Cool. So what pandas did is it created a multiple index level, so it matches up the 2 lists you gave it and assigns one index level to the other one. So for instance, since your first 3 values of your first index list were 1s, then it assigned that one index to the first 3 values of your second list. So those first 3 ABCs were all assigned on the one index, and then you have a sub-index of ABC. And then similarly, the 3 2s were assigned to the second set of ABC. So we can also check multiple levels. So if I, for instance, call the index method on my series, it'll give me the number of levels and their labels as well. And let's say I wanted to check a specific subset. So if I wanted to check, for instance, the first A, B, and C set, so the 1 in index 1, I can call it, and I'll get those first 3 values. And if I called the second index, I would get the second ones, 0.93, 0.157, and then 0.411. Let's say I wanted to call an index from an internal index level. So let's say I wanted to know everything on the series that was associated with an A. So I want to know both this value, 1A negative 0.34, and I also wanted to know the second A, 0.934. The way I can do that is by selecting everything using a colon in the higher index level and then specifying that I want all A's in that lower index level. And there you go. It gives you that outer index level and then the 2 values that were associated with the inner index of A. So we can also create data frames from a series of multiple levels, and we can do that using a method called unstack. So we can name our data frame dframe and then call the unstack method on that data frame. And then let's go ahead and take a look at what happened there. So since you had multiple index levels, now you can create a dframe using unstack, and it'll create the lower index levels as columns, and your higher ones will be now the index of the rows. And we can also apply multiple level indexing to data frames since the very beginning. So if you wanted to construct a data frame with multiple index levels, we can do it like this. So I'll show you an example. So you have your data frame, you have np.arrange. So we're going to choose 16 points, and then let's reshape this into a matrix. We'll just have it be a 4x4 matrix. And then we're going to create an index. And again, so we're going to pass 2 lists in the index. First list, I'm going to have it be 2 pairs of letters. And the second list, I'll have it be a set of numbers. And then we can also do subsets of columns. So how can I do that? Well, we can specify that the columns is also going to be a set of lists. So let's have a first column be cities. We'll call NY and Y. Let's say LA and SF. And then the next one we'll do cold, hot. Let's just do hot, cold. All right, awesome. And then we'll have dframe 2 to show it. So let's just see what happened, and let's go over what we just did. So we created a data frame. We arranged our 16-point array, and we reshaped it as a matrix. So if you look on the inside, you have 0 through 15, so that makes sense, and it's a 4x4. And then we passed 2 index lists, AA, BB, 1, 2, 1, 2. So each of these gets matched up. So now these first 1, 2s are associated with A on the outer index, and then the second set of 1, 2s are associated with B on the outer index. So that's what we got going on those index of rows. And then if we wanted to make an index hierarchy for the columns, we can do the same thing. We created NY and YLASF. That's going to be your outer index. And then your sub-index there, we decided to be cold, hot, hot, cold. And that's what we got here. And they're associated with the first value on your first list is associated with the first value on your second list that you pass, and so on. Second value NY associated with the second value here, hot. So you get that going on your data frame. So if you want to keep better track of your index levels, you can name your index levels. So let's see how to do that. So let's go ahead and name our index levels. And we can do that by passing index.names method. And since we have multiple index levels on the rows, we can just pass a list. So we'll say index, index 1 for that first row index, index 2 for that second row index, and then we can also name the columns. And we can do it by just passing the method columns and then passing a names on top of that. And let's call our column names. So it looks like, so the first index for the columns are cities. So I'll call it cities. Oops. And the second index is temperature, well, more or less hot and cold. So we'll call it temp. And then after doing that, let's just see what the data frame looks like. Cool. So now we have the names of those indexes. So your first index, the AB, your second index, the 1, 2, 1, 2, and then your column names, cities, and temperatures, cold, hot, hot, cold. Cool. Let's say you wanted to interchange the level orders for some reason. You can do that. So if I wanted temperatures to be the outside index and cities to be the inner sub-index, how could I do that? So you grab your data frame and you pass a method on it called swap level, and then you give it the 2 in this index levels you want to swap. So we want to swap cities and temp. And we're going to set the axis equal to 1 because we want to swap the columns. If we don't put an axis, it'll try to swap the axis 0 by default, and that would be the rows. So since we're swapping columns, we're going to input 1. Let's see what happens. Nice. So now you can see we've swapped the levels. So now the temperature is on the upper level, cold, hot, cold. And you have your cities that are associated with those temperatures. You can also sort levels. So if you wanted to sort a level, you just pass the method sort level. And let's go ahead and pass that and see what happens. So now if we look at the row indexes, they've been sorted. So 1, 1, 2, 2. And what this, the argument I passed here in sort level is for which sub-level of the index to sort. So let's say I passed a 0 instead. Well, now it's going to sort it by the outer index, A's and B's. So those are already sorted. If I wanted to sort it by the 1 index, so remember index 1, that's your 0 index here, index 2, that's your 1 index. Since it starts at 0, and now we've sorted it by the second index, so 1, 1, 2, 2. We can then perform operations on particular levels. So this is where it gets interesting. We take our D frame, and let's say we wanted to compute a sum. But if we only wanted to compute a sum on a certain level, for example, we can pass the level argument, and I only want to compute sums on the temperature level, and I want to compute the sums on the columns, so I'll pass access equal to 1. Let's see what happens. So now I've kind of ignored the cities since I specifically stated the level to be temperatured, and I've added based on the temperature level. So let's look and see what happened there. If we look at our previous data frame, index 1 is A, index 2 is 1. What are all the cold values equal for this index? Well, it was 0 plus 3, and now you have 3 as your cold. And then the hots were 1 plus 2, so now you have 3 by your hots. And you can take that and expand it to the rest of the rows and columns, and that's what you get. Cool. So we'll be messing around more with index hierarchy in the future. It's going to be a really useful tool. That's the end of this section. Next up, we'll look at section 5. It's going to be working with data, the first part. You can go back on previous lectures, get a little more familiar with data frames and series if you want to, and we're going to be reviewing and using those tools a lot through the rest of this course. So I'll see you at the next section. Okay, see you there.